Samantha." My sister Clara's voice rang in my ears like a cruel melody as she pranced away with her new car keys in hand, a smirk plastered across her face. Her words dripped with mockery, and her entourage of friends laughed along like a pack of hyenas. I stood frozen at the edge of the dusty driveway, staring at the crumbling barn and the overgrown fields stretching out before me. This was it, my inheritance, a rundown farm in the middle of nowhere. While Clara got the family mansion, the luxury cars, and an obscene amount of cash, I was left with this dirt. The lawyer had read my parents' will just hours ago, his monotone delivery of the verdict sealing my fate. Clara had barely contained her glee as she flaunted her winnings, and I was too numb to react. My parents always favored her, the golden child, the perfect daughter. But this was a slap in the face. The barn's crooked silhouette loomed in the fading light, and I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Fine, let her laugh. I'd figure something out. I always did. The night was eerily quiet as I stepped into the barn for the first time. The wooden doors creaked like they were groaning under the weight of decades of neglect. Inside, the smell of damp hay and rotting wood was overwhelming, but there was something else, something faintly metallic. I clicked on my flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness. Cobwebs hung like curtains from the rafters, and rusted tools were scattered across the floor. As I walked deeper into the barn, my foot struck something solid, sending a metallic clang echoing through the stillness. It was an old toolbox, its red paint faded and chipped. Curiosity got the better of me, and I knelt down to open it. Inside, I found a collection of tools, but tucked beneath them was a leather-bound journal. The pages were yellowed with age, and the handwriting was shaky but deliberate. The journal belonged to my grandfather, a man I barely remembered. He died when I was a child, and my parents never spoke of him much. But as I flipped through the pages, I realized this wasn't just a diary. It was a log of his work on the farm. And then, near the back, I found something that made my breath catch. A map. The map was crudely drawn, with markings and symbols I didn't recognize. But one thing was clear. There was something hidden on this farm, and my grandfather had gone to great lengths to document its location. My hands trembled as I traced the lines with my fingers. I flipped back to the journal, searching for clues. My grandfather's entries spoke of long nights, secret projects, and a treasure he'd hidden to protect the family's future. The words, life-changing, and worth everything, were scrawled in bold letters on the final page. Adrenaline surged through me. Could it be true? Could this dilapidated farm hold something valuable enough to rival the fortune Clara had inherited? The thought sent a jolt of determination through me. If there was even a chance, I had to find out. Armed with the map and a shovel, I set out at dawn. The markings led me to the farthest corner of the property, where the grass grew wild and the ground was uneven. According to the map, whatever my grandfather had hidden was buried beneath an old oak tree. I dug for hours, the sun beating down on my back. My hands were blistered, my arms ached, but I refused to stop. Sweat dripped into my eyes, and the sound of the shovel striking the dirt became a rhythm that drowned out my frustration. And then it happened. The shovel hit something solid. I dropped to my knees, frantically scraping away the dirt with my hands. My heart pounded as I uncovered a large, rusted chest. The padlock had long since corroded, and with a few hard tugs, I managed to pry it open. Inside was a sight that left me speechless. Inside the chest was a collection of items wrapped in oilcloth. My hands trembled as I carefully unwrapped the first bundle, revealing a stack of old, faded documents. I flipped through them, my breath catching as I realized what I was holding. Land deeds. Dozens of them. But these weren't just any land deeds. They were for properties located in prime areas, places that had since exploded in value. Beneath the deeds was a small velvet pouch. When I opened it, my jaw dropped. Glittering in the sunlight was a handful of uncut gemstones. Sapphires, emeralds, and rubies, their colors vibrant even through the layer of dust that coated them. But that wasn't all. At the bottom of the chest, wrapped in an even thicker layer of cloth, was a sealed metal tube. I hesitated for a moment before opening it, revealing a set of blueprints. As I unrolled them, my heart raced. These weren't ordinary blueprints. They were plans for a piece of technology, something that looked ahead of its time. My grandfather had been an inventor, and these blueprints seemed to hold the key to something revolutionary. I sat back, staring at the treasure before me. This wasn't just wealth, it was power. And Clara had no idea. I spent the rest of the day poring over the blueprints and documents. The more I read, the clearer it became. My grandfather had been a genius. He'd worked on projects that could have changed industries, but for some reason, he'd kept them hidden. The blueprints detailed a machine that could refine energy more efficiently than anything on the market today. It was the kind of discovery that could disrupt entire industries. As the sun set, I locked everything back in the chest and carried it inside the farmhouse. My mind was racing with possibilities. What should I do with this? Should I sell the gemstones and the land deeds? Should I find someone to build the machine? But one thought kept nagging at me. Why had my grandfather hidden this? And why hadn't he told anyone? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Clara's mocking voice in my head, and for the first time, I felt something other than anger. I felt pity. She had no idea what she'd missed out on, and for once, I was glad my parents had overlooked me. The next morning, I called a local historian, someone I remembered from a school project years ago. If anyone could help me understand the significance of what I'd found, it was her. When I described the blueprints and the deeds, her voice grew sharp with interest. Your grandfather was a remarkable man, she said, but he was also cautious. He didn't trust many people, especially after what happened with his first invention. What happened? I asked, my curiosity piqued. There were rumors of betrayal. Someone close to him stole his work and made a fortune from it. He never recovered from the betrayal, but he vowed to protect his future creations at all costs. Her words sent a chill down my spine. Betrayal. It seemed to run in the family. Over the next few days, I began to formulate a plan. First, I needed to verify the value of what I'd found. I contacted an appraiser for the gemstones and a lawyer for the land deeds. Both confirmed what I already suspected. I was sitting on a fortune. But the blueprints, they were trickier. I reached out to a tech firm, posing as an inventor with a groundbreaking idea. When they expressed interest, I knew I had something special. Yet, a part of me hesitated. Clara would never let me live in peace if she found out. She'd fight me for every cent, and I didn't trust her not to ruin everything. If I wanted to succeed, I'd have to outsmart her, and anyone else who might try to take what was mine. It didn't take long for Clara to notice the change in me. I stopped answering her calls and began spending my days at the farm, restoring the house and barn while secretly working on the blueprints. When she showed up unannounced one afternoon, I knew she smelled something. Still playing farmer? She sneered, leaning against her expensive car. I heard you've been busy. What's the deal? Just fixing the place up, I said casually, wiping my hands on a rag. Figured I might as well make the best of it. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't push further. Still, I knew Clara well enough to recognize the wheels turning in her head. She wouldn't let this go. A week later, I came home to find the barn door wide open. My heart dropped as I sprinted inside, fearing the worst. The chest was gone. I knew it was Clara. No one else would have a reason to break in. Rage boiled inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. If she thought she'd won, she was in for a rude awakening. I stood in the barn, fists clenched, staring at the empty space where the chest had been. My mind raced. Clara thought she was clever, but I knew her well enough to guess her next move. She'd try to sell the gemstones and deeds immediately, cashing in before I could stop her. I grabbed my keys and jumped into my truck, the engine roaring to life. My first stop was her favorite pawn shop in town. Clara loved showing off her finds, even if they weren't hers to begin with. As I sped down the road, I called the shop owner, Mr. Grayson, a man who owed me a favor. Sam? What's the rush? He asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. Clara might come by with something valuable, a chest filled with gemstones and documents. If she does, don't let her sell it. Stall her. I'll explain later. There was a pause. Understood. I'll keep an eye out. Hanging up, I felt a surge of determination. Clara thought she could outsmart me, but this time she'd crossed the line. I arrived at the shop just as Clara's car pulled into the lot. She stepped out, her face a mask of confidence, the chest tucked under one arm. For a moment, I watched from the truck, anger simmering beneath the surface. This wasn't just about the chest. It was about years of her treating me like I was nothing. She waltzed into the shop, her heels clicking against the floor. I followed a moment later, keeping to the shadows. As she placed the chest on the counter, Mr. Grayson raised an eyebrow. "Interesting find," he said, lifting the lid. His practiced hands examined the gemstones, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was stalling just as I'd asked. Before Clara could respond, I stepped forward. "Funny running into you here, Clara." Her head snapped around, her eyes widening in surprise before narrowing in suspicion. "Sam, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said, my voice cold. "That chest doesn't belong to you." Her lips curled into a smirk. "Oh, please. It was just sitting in that barn, collecting dust. You didn't even know what you had." "Doesn't matter," I shot back. "It's mine." The tension crackled between us like a live wire. Mr. Grayson cleared his throat, sensing the confrontation was about to escalate. "Maybe you two should take this outside," he suggested. "Gladly," I said, grabbing the chest. Clara tried to protest, but I silenced her with a glare. "We're settling this now." Outside, Clara crossed her arms, her smirk returning. "You always did take everything so personally, Sam. Why don't you just admit it? You're jealous. You've always been jealous." "Jealous?" I barked out a bitter laugh. "Of what? Your entitlement? Your arrogance? The way you've always walked over people to get what you want." Her eyes flashed with anger. "I earned everything I have." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You've stolen everything you have. And now you've stolen this. But here's the thing, you don't even understand what you've taken." For the first time, I saw doubt flicker in her expression. "What are you talking about?" I opened the chest, pulling out the blueprints. "This isn't just about money, Clara. This is about legacy. Our grandfather's legacy. He trusted me to find this and protect it, and I'll be damned if I let you ruin it." Her gaze darted to the blueprints, then back to me. "Legacy? Don't make me laugh. All I see is a pile of junk." "That's because you only see dollar signs," I snapped. "But these plans, they could change everything. And you'll never get your hands on them." Clara's laughter faded, replaced by a calculating look. "Fine. You want your precious chest? Take it. But don't think for a second this is over." I knew her well enough to recognize the threat in her voice. Clara didn't back down easily, and she didn't lose gracefully. As she stalked back to her car, I felt a pang of unease. This wasn't the last I'd see of her. I loaded the chest into my truck and drove home, my mind racing. Clara might have backed off for now, but she'd come after me again. I needed to secure the chest and its contents before she had a chance to strike. Back at the farm, I called the historian I'd spoken to earlier. When I explained what had happened, she immediately offered to help. "I can connect you with people who can authenticate the blueprints and ensure they're protected," she said. "But you'll need to be careful. If these plans are as valuable as they seem, others might come after them too." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Clara was bad enough, but the thought of strangers getting involved was even worse. I thanked her and hung up, determined to stay one step ahead. The farmhouse felt colder that night, as though the walls themselves were bracing for what was coming. I locked the chest in the basement, double-checking every latch and bolt. My paranoia was growing by the minute, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Clara wasn't done with me. Sleep didn't come easy. Every creak of the old house, every whisper of wind outside, set my nerves on edge. Around midnight, I heard something, a soft rustling outside the barn. My stomach dropped. Grabbing the flashlight and the crowbar I kept near the door, I slipped outside, keeping to the shadows. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, landing on a figure crouched near the barn's side window. "Who's there?" I barked. The figure froze, then bolted. I chased them, the flashlight bouncing wildly in my hand. They were fast, but I was faster. Within moments, I tackled them to the ground, wrestling to pin their arms. "Let me go," a familiar voice hissed. My heart sank. "Clara? Are you insane?" I yelled, shining the light on her face. She glared up at me, defiant as ever. "You can't keep this from me, Sam. It's part of our family, and I have every right to it." I hauled her to her feet, my grip firm on her arm. "Breaking into my property? Spying on me? You've gone too far." Clara sneered. "You always act so righteous, but you're no better than me. You're just scared I'll beat you to the punch." "You're wrong," I said coldly. "I'm not scared of you, but you should be scared of what happens if you keep pushing me." After escorting Clara off the property, I knew I couldn't handle this alone anymore. The next morning, I reached out to the historian, Maggie, again. When I explained the situation, she offered more than just advice. She offered her connections. "I know someone who specializes in securing intellectual property," she said. "If those blueprints are as revolutionary as you say, they need to be patented immediately." By midday, I was sitting across from a sharp-eyed woman named Dr. Helena Cross. Her office was lined with bookshelves and blueprints, and her no-nonsense demeanor put me on edge. "These are remarkable," she said after examining the blueprints. "Your grandfather was ahead of his time. But if you want to protect this, you need to act fast. Once the word gets out, you'll have competitors and thieves crawling out of the woodwork." Her warning sent a chill through me. "What do I need to do?" "Leave everything with me," she said. "I'll handle the patent process and secure the necessary funding to bring this to life. But you need to stay vigilant. If your sister or anyone else knows about this, they could try to sabotage you." Clara wasn't done. A week later, I found her standing on the porch, arms crossed, a smug grin on her face. "Nice place you've got here," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Too bad it's going to waste on you." "What do you want, Clara?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. "I'm here to make you an offer," she said, holding up a piece of paper. "Sell me the rights to whatever's in that chest. I'll give you a fair price." I laughed bitterly. "You think I trust you after everything you've pulled?" Her grin faltered. "You're making a mistake, Sam. This isn't over." "No," I said firmly. "It's not. But when it is, I'll be the one standing on top." A few days later, things took a turn for the worse. Somehow, news of the blueprints leaked. A small tech blog ran an article about the discovery of a forgotten invention, and while they didn't name me directly, it wasn't hard to connect the dots. My phone started ringing off the hook. Reporters, investors, even opportunists hoping to cash in on the story. It was chaos. Worst of all, I knew Clara had to be behind the leak. Desperation clawed at me. I called Dr. Cross, explaining the situation. "This speeds up the timeline," she said. "We need to move fast before someone else stakes a claim." "Can you still protect it?" I asked. "Yes, but it's going to cost you, financially and emotionally. Are you ready for that?" I didn't hesitate. "Do whatever it takes." The following weeks were a blur of meetings, legal battles, and sleepless nights. Clara tried to challenge my claim, hiring lawyers to argue that the chest and its contents belonged to both of us. But I'd anticipated her move and had already filed the necessary paperwork to secure sole ownership. When the court ruled in my favor, Clara's fury was palpable. "You think you've won?" she spat, her voice venomous. "This isn't the end, Sam." "No," I said, my voice steady. "It's just the beginning." Clara's threat hung in the air like a storm cloud, but I pushed forward, knowing I couldn't afford to let my guard down. With the court ruling in my favor and the blueprints secured under Dr. Cross's watchful eye, the project began to take shape. Investors were lining up, intrigued by the potential of my grandfather's invention, and the farm became a hive of activity. But Clara wasn't the type to admit defeat. 2 weeks after the court ruling, I received an anonymous tip, a text from an untraceable number. "Check your barn. She's not done with you yet." I bolted to the barn, dread tightening my chest. Inside, everything looked untouched at first glance. But as I sifted through the tools and supplies, I noticed the padlock on the basement door had been tampered with. My heart sank. When I reached the basement, the chest was still there, but its contents had been rifled through. The gemstones were gone. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to confirm what was missing. The deeds and blueprints were untouched, thankfully, but the gemstones were nowhere to be found. Clara must have taken them. The thought of her holding onto something so valuable sent a fresh wave of fury coursing through me. I called Maggie and Dr. Cross immediately, informing them of the theft. Maggie's voice was calm but firm. "You need to report this to the police, Sam. If Clara tries to sell those gems, there's a paper trail leading back to you." Dr. Cross agreed. "The blueprints are the heart of this project, but those gemstones represent a significant portion of your grandfather's wealth. We need to track them down before Clara does something reckless." I filed a police report that evening, detailing everything I could about the stolen items. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be a simple recovery. Clara was clever and she had resources. If she'd taken the gems, she'd have a plan for them. The next day, Clara showed up at the farm again, uninvited and unrepentant. She leaned casually against her car, twirling her keys as if she didn't have a care in the world. "Lose something?" she asked with a sly smile. My jaw tightened. "Give them back, Clara. Now." She tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Give what back? I have no idea what you're talking about." "You broke into my property," I said, stepping closer. "And you stole from me. This isn't a game, Clara. You're in over your head." Her smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Prove it," she said smugly. "You've got nothing on me." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my temper in check. "You think you've won, but you haven't. The police are involved now, and it's only a matter of time before they trace those gems back to you." Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, but she didn't respond. Instead, she got back in her car and drove off, leaving me seething. A week later, the police called with an update. A jeweler in a nearby city had reported someone trying to sell uncut gemstones matching the description I'd provided. The person had been careful, paying in cash and using a fake name, but surveillance footage showed a blurry image of Clara leaving the shop. The police assured me they were building a case, but I couldn't wait. I needed to act now. I contacted Maggie and Dr. Cross, sharing the update. Dr. Cross offered a solution I hadn't considered: hiring a private investigator to track Clara's movements and recover the gems. "It's unconventional," she admitted, "but if Clara's selling the gems piecemeal, we might be able to intercept her before she cashes out completely." I agreed, desperate for any advantage. The investigator, a sharp-eyed man named Marcus, began his work immediately, tracking Clara's financial activity and following her trail across the city. It didn't take long for Marcus to find a lead. Clara had scheduled a meeting with a potential buyer, a wealthy collector known for acquiring rare and valuable items off the record. Marcus suggested setting up a sting operation, coordinating with the police to catch Clara in the act. The plan was risky, but it was our best shot at recovering the gems. I agreed, my nerves on edge as the date of the meeting approached. The night of the operation, I waited anxiously near the collector's estate, hidden from view but close enough to see the action unfold. Clara arrived on time, dressed to impress and carrying a small velvet pouch. My chest tightened as I realized the gems were inside. Moments later, the police moved in, surrounding Clara and the buyer before they could finalize the deal. Clara's expression shifted from smug confidence to pure panic as the officers arrested her and confiscated the gems. The recovery of the gems was a relief, but the situation with Clara was far from resolved. She was released on bail within days, and her anger toward me had reached a boiling point. I knew she wouldn't stop until she found a way to sabotage me, or worse. Meanwhile, Dr. Cross finalized the patent for the blueprints, securing my grandfather's invention under my name. Investors were more interested than ever, and the project was gaining momentum. Despite Clara's efforts to derail me, I was finally seeing progress. Clara showed up at the farm one last time, uninvited as always. This time, her appearance was different, disheveled, desperate. She'd lost the upper hand and she knew it. "I don't want to fight anymore, Sam," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Can we just talk? I crossed my arms, wary of her sudden change in demeanor. Talk about what, Clara? How you've lied, stolen, and betrayed me. Her eyes filled with tears. I made mistakes, okay? I was angry, and I didn't think things through. But we're family, Sam. Can't we find a way to move forward? Her words stirred something in me. Pity, maybe, or a flicker of hope. But I couldn't forget everything she'd done. Family doesn't do what you did, I said firmly. You made your choices, Clara. Now you have to live with them. After Clara left, I felt a strange sense of closure. For years, I'd been haunted by her shadow, always feeling like I was less than her. But now, I realized I didn't need her approval or her apology to move forward. I had my own path, my own legacy to protect. The farm became a symbol of that legacy. With the funds from the invention and the recovered gems, I restored the property to its former glory. The barn was no longer a decaying relic but a bustling hub of activity, a testament to the ingenuity and perseverance my grandfather had passed down to me. As the first prototype of my grandfather's invention rolled off the assembly line, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. This wasn't just about wealth or success. It was about honoring the man who had believed in the future, even when the world hadn't believed in him. The invention was a game changer, garnering attention from industries and media worldwide. And while Clara's name was nowhere in the credits, she'd become a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when greed overshadows integrity. Standing on the porch of the farmhouse, I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The journey had been long, painful, and fraught with betrayal, but I'd emerged stronger. This farm, once dismissed as worthless dirt, had become the foundation of something extraordinary. Clara's laughter no longer haunted me. Instead, it was replaced by the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd proven her, and everyone else, wrong. My grandfather's legacy was secure.